So, touch the to everyone, and today we're going to begin our first lecture, which is a part of the series, the Tibetan Open Lecture Series. And today we're going to discuss a very brief introduction on the 10 sciences. So we must first understand that the 10 sciences have a great significance and a great place in both the Tibetan as well as the Indian system of learning. And so in the old times, in the times of the Nalanda, and before that, a person who has achieved a proficiency or mastery over would be regarded as the Paṇḍita, master of any 5 sciences. So today we're going to explore these through few of the topics that we're going to discuss today. So it must be understood that these are very brief introduction on each of these sciences, meaning that when we go in depth in understanding each sciences, there are more information regarding each of these branches. So we're only going to touch the very brief and the surface understanding of these knowledge and perspective. According to the Tibetan people. So the topic that we're going to discuss is introduction on the 10 sciences, how each of the sciences, so here we're going to discuss how each of these sciences were introduced in Tibet, and what was some of the impact of the introduction of these sciences in Tibet, and why we have to preserve these 10 sciences as an ancient wisdom. So, like we already discussed, the word Paṇḍita refers to a scholar who has attained a certain level of mastery or proficiency in the field of the 10 sciences. So a Paṇḍita is a person who has learned and have mastered five of the 10 sciences. And these 10 sciences, as we see, are these are very significant part of the ancient Tibetan and Indian system of learning. So these are very essential, very important part of the system of learning, which has been followed for previous 2,000 and more than 2,000 years in both of these countries. So the 10 sciences are classified into the 5 major sciences, and the 5 minor sciences. So these are the 2 classifications. So the 5 major sciences. The first one is Dharikpa, which means the science of grammar. The second one is Sorikpa, which is the science of fine arts and crafts. The third one is Soarikpa, which is science of medicine. The fourth one is Nauntunrikpa, which is the inner science. And then the fifth one is Tensirikpa, the science of logic and epistemology. The 5 minor sciences are, first one is Nyanga, poetry. Second one is Ngonju, synonymic. Third one is Dibjor. composition. Fourth one is Dökar, performing arts. And final one, the fifth one is Kursi, astrology. So this particular word is translated in two ways. Some of the translators prefer the term astrology. Some use the term astrology and arithmetic. So these are the two preferred translation for the word Kursi. Okay, so these are the 5 signs. These are the 10 signs, the 5 major and the 5 minor sciences. So first, the science of grammar. So the definition of a science of grammar. So most of these definitions are based on the definition given in the dictionary of Thongka Rinpoche, Lobsang Chile. So the definitions, please check the definitions in the dictionary of Thongka Rinpoche. So according to Thongka Rinpoche's definition, the science of grammar is the study or is the studies of the system of rules established in a particular language. And these rules which enables conveying of comprehensible and correct information within the bound of particular language. So this science is a study of rules which enables one to convey a sound and comprehensible message in the bound of a particular language. And these rules includes the rules on how to associate words and particles in order to convey a sound information. So the Indian, if we talk about the Indian system of grammar, we can see that the Indian scholars have both influenced and inspired the current system of grammar in Tibet. And out of the 10 Vyakarana sutras, 4 have been popularized and translated in Tibetan language. So these are the 4 Vyakarana sutras which are popularized and which were translated in Tibetan language. The first one is Panini Vyakarana. The second one is Chandragumi Vyakarana. Then the Kalapa Vyakarana and the Saraswati Vyakarana Sutra. So in Tibetan, the Panini Vyakarana is called Paniwa. The Chandragumi Vyakarana is called Sandrava. The Kalapa Vyakarana is called Trado Kalapa. Trado means the sutra, the grammar, the sutra, Vyakarana Sutra, Kalapa. And then Saraswati Vyakarana Sutra is Trado Yangjian. Yangjian Trado, which means Saraswati Vyakarana Sutra. So 4 of these were translated in Tibetan. So the second one is the science of fine arts and crafts, Sorikpa. So according to the definition in Thongka Rinpoche's dictionary, the science of fine arts and crafts is the study of manufacturing things to facilitate people in their daily task or to provide people with service in order to make their lives easier. So it's a science, it's a study which deals with understanding on how to manufacture things, objects like tools, and these are manufactured in order to facilitate people to live an easier life. So in the commentary of the Mahayana Sutra, Alankara, it states that the Bodhisattva should persevere in studying the science of fine arts and crafts in order to provide their service to the people, to make their life easier in a way that to teach them methods of sustenance, to provide them with tools in order to provide them with tools and methods in order for them to make a living. So therefore, the science of fine arts and crafts is an art which is provided for the sake of facilitating people, or to provide service in order to make their life easier. So when it comes to the science of fine arts and crafts, Tibet have both adopted and improvised many of these arts and crafts. Some of the well-known crafts adopted from India, China, and Nepal would be making armor and weaponry, building houses, bridges, etc. And there are other fine arts and crafts which were also inspired from which were, some of them were originally from Tibet. Some of them were influenced by other nations like China and Nepal. And there are many texts by scholars on this science translated into Tibetan language. And one such text, and which may be the first text in this field of science translated in Tibetan, is Nagarjuna's treatise of turning stone into gold. So it goes to the story. It goes to the time of Nagarjuna, when it came to a time when people were, especially people and the monastery, were facing great distress because of famine and drought. And it is said that during those times, Nagarjuna, some of the accounts tell that Nagarjuna went to another planet to bring the philosopher's stone in order to turn materials into gold, so that this could be provided. So there are also some depiction of the similar name. It's a 9th century alchemist, Nagarjuna, who also has written treatise in turning matter into gold. So there are some of those arguments with this. So this particular text is probably the first text in the field of science of fine arts and craft, which was translated in Tibetan. The science of medicine, Sorik. The science of medicine is the study of medicine, the methods of diagnosis and treatment of disease to provide living beings a long life free of diseases. So from the same sutra, Mahayana Sutra, Alankara, it is said that Bodhisattva persevere in the study of the science of medicine. And this is done in order to provide the sentient being, to provide a service to the sentient being, in order to rid them of diseases. So this science mainly deals with providing service to other living beings by helping them get rid of diseases. So according to Muge Samdin's literature, A History of Traditional Field of Learning, the science of medicine in Tibet was first introduced and widespread during the 28th king of Tibet, Hathotori Nyingtse. And during that time, it is said that this particular science of medicine was introduced to Tibet by two physicians of the Arya land of Tibet. So this is the science. So according to the definition, the science of medicine is a study of medicines, methods of diagnosis and treatment of diseases to provide the living beings a long life free of disease. So the science of logic and epistemology. So the science of logic and epistemology, so according to Thongkar Rinpoche's definition, is the study of enlightening any wrong concepts and understanding upon a phenomenon by establishing a system of logic through statement of the object, subject, and method of comprehending the valid cognition pertaining both the subject and the object. So this particular science deals with cutting of any wrong conception, any misconception or wrong conception, which leads towards obscuration of arising valid cognition. And this is also a very important part of the treatise of Nalanda scholars, Nalanda Buddhist scholars. Though when we talk about science of logic and epistemology, there are many treatises on this particular science which were composed before any text of logic and epistemology composed by Buddhist scholars. The current practice of dialectics, as we see that the current practice of dialectics that we have in the monasteries, we have the current practice of dialectics in which you see that people ask questions to each other. They ask questions. The current system of dialectics is also inspired and based upon the treatises of Nalanda Paṇḍita, such as Dignaga and Dharmakirti, and their text on the science of logic and epistemology. So we know that in the Tibetan system, we have the fundamental epistemology, the Dutra, and this Dutra is based upon the logic and reasoning which were clarified and stated in the treatise of Dignaga and Dharmakirti. So this particular science deals with the cutting of any misconception, wrong conception, which obscure or which obstruct one self in arising a valid cognition. Inner science. So this is the fifth of the 5 major sciences, the inner science. So according to the definition of Thongkar Rinpoche, Nangduen Ripa, or inner science, is the study of methods to tame or to control one's mind. So this study of method to tame or control one's mind, which is based on understanding the 3 fundamental practices. The 3 fundamental practices. And we're also going to understand that three fundamental practices also arise from the study of the five major sciences. So according to the Pratimoksha Sutra, Sosotapito, the Sutra of Individual Liberation, Buddha states, so let me read it in Tibetan and then I'll read it in English. Commit not a single non-virtuous deed. Cultivate plentiful of virtuous merits, taming one's mind completely. That is the teaching of Buddhas. So according to this very verse, we understand that the inner science has to deal with taming one's own mind. And the concept of taming one's mind is only possible through applying oneself into the three fundamental practice of perseverance, practice of concentration, and practice of arising discriminating wisdom. So according to the inner science, according to the definition, both the definition given by Thongka Rinpoche and the inferential understanding from the verse from the Pratimoksha Sutra, we understand that the inner science has to do with the taming of one's mind. And so the entire understanding of the understanding of the inner mind or inner science in Buddhism is classified in three baskets of teaching, three pitaka or Paube Denisum. So each of these three different baskets of teaching helps in arising the three fundamental practice, which in turn helps in taming one's mind. So, I'll paraphrase one of the statement made by His Holiness during his teaching. He states that all the teachings, all the methods and teachings which are of the 84,000 bodies of 84,000 bodies of teachings of Buddha is to understand one's mind and to tame it or control it. And that is the inner science. And this type of study deals with arising of knowledge which pertains to oneself, understanding oneself, the nature of one's mind. And thus, by understanding the nature of one's mind, to tame or control one's mind. So the three baskets of teaching, the three pitakas or Paube Denisum. The first basket is the basket of discourse, Sutra Pitaka, Due Din. The second basket is the basket of discipline, Vinaya Pitaka, Tode Din. And the final basket is basket of discriminating wisdom, Abhidharma Pitaka, Ngombe Din. And by applying oneself in the teachings of each of these baskets, by applying oneself into the teachings of the basket of discourse, one is able to arise the practice of concentration. By applying oneself in the basket of discipline, Vinaya Pitaka, one is able to arise the practice of discipline, Sultim. And by applying oneself to the teachings of the basket of discriminating wisdom, Abhidharma Pitaka, one is capable of arising discriminating wisdom, Sherab. So when we talk about discriminating wisdom, the discriminating means to discriminate between the illusory appearance and the true nature of phenomena. So these are the 5 major signs. As we introduce them, these are the 5 major sciences. The first one is the science of grammar, which is the study of understanding the structure of a particular language and to understand the rules that governs the language. And these rules should be followed in order to provide a message, to convey a message, which is a comprehensible and a sound message in the bounds of that particular language. So that is the first one, the grammar. And enables one to dissolve all the doubts and all the misconception pertaining the grammar of a particular language. The second one is the science of fine arts and crafts. And this study is a study of manufacturing things and objects in order to provide service or to facilitate people to live an easier life, to provide an easier life. The third study, so the second study is a field in which one is capable to provide service to others. The third one, the science of medicine, is a study which is study of medicine, methods of diagnosis and treatment of diseases in order to provide a long life to the living beings without disease. And this is a study, a field of study that is to provide service to others in order to help them rid of suffering due to diseases. Fourth one is the study of logic and epistemology, which deals with understanding of the methods pertaining object and subject, and the valid cognition pertaining methods of arising valid cognition towards the object and subject, so that one can cut through the wrong and the misconception. So it is a study or field of a system of logic which enables oneself to cut through the misconception of invalid cognition. The third one is the inner science. So this study is a study that provides oneself with methods to tame one's mind. So these type of studies and this field of study mainly focuses in providing oneself knowledge, wisdom, through the 3 fundamental practices, so as to tame or control one's mind. So these are the 5 major sciences. So the 5 minor sciences are considered to be subgroup of the science of grammar. And the first one of the 5 minor sciences is the science of poetry. So the poetry is a subgroup under the science of grammar. Definition according to the dictionary of Tongka Rinpoche states, a poetry is defined as a form of writing that is considered to be a higher form of speech. And this is a type of writing which is considered to be a higher form of speech, meaning that it is a higher form of speech in comparison to our day-to-day conversation. So it's considered to be a higher form of speech And this particular type of speech is pleasant. It's pleasant to the ears, and it fascinates the listener. When they listen to these words are both in structure and in meaning, meaning that both in the melody as structure of words and as a structural of meaning, both the word and the meaning are structured in a way that when someone listens to this, it is a very pleasant thing to listen to, as well as when one contemplates on the meaning, it fascinates the listener, meaning that it instantly it catches the attention of the listener in a way that one becomes fascinated, one becomes mesmerized by the meaning of these words and the structure. So the earliest surviving text on poetry in Sanskrit is known as Mirror of Poetry. So it should be understood that Mirror of Poetry is considered to be a text on poetry and not a poetry itself. So Mirror of Poetry, in Sanskrit, it's called Kavya Darsa, and in Tibetan, it's called Nyanga Melongma. And this is also one of the earliest texts in terms of a in-depth, thorough learning of the system, the composition, the structuring of a poem in Tibet. So this was one of the earliest texts which was translated. It was translated by Sakya Paṇḍita in 1100s. So one of the earliest texts on the study of poem or poetry in Tibet. Because one must understand that in early times, all of the poems in Tibet were only verbal, oral, meaning that they were only verbal. Meaning that in Tibet, families would gather, and so there are many different forms of these. So families would gather in the evening, and then the eldest one or the elders would know certain type of poems by heart, and then they would recite it, and these poems would have certain meaning. So many of the early poems were all verbal, and so it was only later, when after the establishment of this writing system, the widely accepted writing system in Tibet, that the actual writing of poems started in Tibet. Okay, so the second minor science, which comes under the science of grammar, is Ngunju, which is synonymic, the study of synonyms. So this is according to the definition of Thongkar Rinpoche. In his dictionary, he states that synonymic is the study of synonyms. And this is a very important tool used in poetry, as well as addressing, when you're addressing someone in a respectful way. This is also used. So the earliest text, which was of synonymic, which was translated in Tibetan language, is the Indian text on synonymics, synonymic called Amarakosa. In Tibetan, it is Chimedzu. And this was authored by Amarasimha Chiwamebe Senke, who was born in 375 current era. So the synonymic became a very important part of Tibetan system of writing, both as a part of composition of poetry of songs, of praise, of hymns. So following is the synonyms for sun. So synonyms for sun. So the first one is Jungni Dakpo, which means the Lord of 12. So the 12 means the 12th zodiac house, the 12th zodiac sign. So the Lord of the 12th zodiac sign is known as since it is considered to be the Lord or the Lord of the 12 zodiac signs, it is called Junyi Dakpo. Junyi means 12, Dakpo means Lord or owner. Namke Norbu, gem of the sky or sky gem. Namka, which means sky, Norbu means gem. Because it looks like a gem in the sky, which shines. Pemenye, which means friend of lotus. This is because when the sunlight hits the lotus blooms, or it opens its petals. The Dunwangpo, Lord of the 7 horses, the chariot of the sun is said to the chariot of the sun, Surya, is said to have 7 horses. Tajangjian, the green horse chariot. All of the 7 horses are said to be green in color. Tangchi, illuminator, since because of the sun, one is as it dispels the darkness on the world, we're able to see things. So therefore, it's called the illuminator. Medum, sphere of fire, ball of fire. As the sphere of fire or ball of fire, because it's spherical in shape, and when we look at it, it seems like it is burning. So it's sphere of fire or ball of fire. So all of these are synonyms for sun. And similarly, we have synonyms for other words as well. For example, metopema, which is the lotus, is also known as toke, which means the lake born, because it's born from the lake, so it's called lake born. And plant are also known as gangtung, which means the one who drinks from its feet. So therefore, we see that the science of synonymic deals with these different type of synonyms for a same word. And why do we need this variation? Because we need this variation either as a tool in poetry, or it could be used in riddles, because riddles, kapsi, or riddles, were very much popularized in Tibet, especially during the time of the imperial dynasty. Okay, so this is the synonymic. Composition, debjur. So according to the definition by Thongka Rinpoche, composition is a study of structural writing in poetry and non-poetic writings. This may consist of short stories. So composition may consist of short stories. It may consist of other form of writings, and also it also consists the structural writing of poetry. So during the early times, the stories and poems were all told from generation to generation verbally, and there were no written stories or poem. It was only later, that is establishment of the current system of writing by Tumi Sambuddha, that written documentations was made possible. So this particular statement could be a little argumentative also, but it could have a little arguments there, because the thing is that the first ever recorded document of history was in the original language of Shangshu. So the first ever historical document was written in the writing system of Shangshu. Many of these sciences only flourished after the established system of writing, the writing that was invented by Tumi Sambuddha in the 7th century. So one of the most famous verbally passed down story is the epic of Kesar King. So this particular epic was first passed on verbally, and this can be understood when you hear someone perform the epic verbally. They start from saying Lu Allah Thala, which is a method for preparing one's vocal, to prepare one's acoustic or vocal acoustic. So it's a way to do workout before reciting this poem verbally. So we may see similar practices done in Western music, classical music. So when this epic starts, when it is performed, the first thing we hear is people reciting Lu Allah Thala, and this is a particular practice. This particular Allah Thala doesn't have meaning as such, but it's a workout. It's a vocal workout. So it's a workout so that one can smoothly deliver the entire point. So it's a very it's an epic of a king, which is said to be in around 200 or 300 year before current era, and this entire poem or the epic has 1 million verse. So though the popularity for this epic reached its highest during the 12th century, and there were many written documents, though not complete, but there were many written documents on this. But the present form of the epic that we hear and that we can read these days was written in the 15th, at latest, was written in the 15th century. And then when we talk about composition, we also talk about short stories, and there are many short stories as well as riddles in Tibetan tradition. So many short stories, and many of which at the end would have a certain type of moral. Just like the story Miyo Gyuche, which is the cunning man. And this particular story talks about a cunning man who finds the skin of a leopard in the forest. And then what he does is that he covers his donkey with that particular skin of leopard, and then sends the field into the farm and the field of other people in the village. And the village people, because they are scared of the leopard, dare not approach the donkey, and the donkey moved from one farm to other, eating the best of the cultivation. But finally, the people, what they did is that they gather all their courage, and then they attack the donkey wearing the leopard skin. But at the end, it was found that it was the donkey, and so the donkey was killed, and the cunning man lost his donkey. So you see this type of story in which at the end, one has a certain type of moral. So these kind of short stories were also considered in composition. Performing arts. So the performing arts, as we see, Deokhar, by definition, is a representation of a story or past events through integration of music with theatrical performance. This may also include series of drama or a combination of music and drama into an opera. And Tibetan opera, or what is left of it right now, many of the famous operas, the 8 famous operas of Tibet, as well as some of the operas which were taken or improvised, adapted or improvised from India. One such as the biography of Dharma King Sudana, Chögye Norsang, and the traditional ritualistic dance of Cham that we see is being performed. So currently there are 8 famous operas which constitute the inseparable part of Tibetan culture and tradition. These 8 operas are first Nangsa Öbum, the story of the maiden Nangsa Öbum. Then the story of Draw Sangmo, maiden Draw Sangmo. Then story of the prince Sukjen Yingbo. Story of Pema Höber. The story of Princess Wengchen and Princess Rikuti, the two main wives of the King Songtsen Gampo. One who was the princess from China, the other from Nepal. And the story of the brother Tönö and Tönrup. And the story or biography of Dharma King Norsang, Sudana, and the story of the Prince Timekundu. So these are the 8 famous opera of Tibet, which is an inseparable part of Tibetan tradition and culture, as well as performing arts. Now, how did the science of grammar and the 5 minor signs were established in Tibet? So according to Muge Samte's record of a history of traditional fields of learning, the first ever widespread and accepted system of writing in Tibet was invented by the Tibetan grammarian and scholar, also renowned as the first scholar of Tibet, Khebe Thangpo, Tumi Sambuddha, the son of Anu. It is a system of grammar which is inspired and based upon Panini's grammatical system, Rado Paniwa. So we must understand that the first ever widespread and accepted system of Tibetan system of writing and grammar was established during the time of the 7th century scholar Tumi Sambuddha, who was one of the 7 famous ministers in the history of Tibet. 7 famous ministers who had accomplished great merits. So one of the 7, Tumi Sambuddha, and he went to India. So by the command of the king, Songtsen Gampo, the first king of the unified Tibet, the first king of the unified Tibet, during his time, the capital of Tibet was moved from Yarlung to Lhasa, and he was also the one who built the Potala Palace. And so during his time, it was already prophesied during the time of the 28th king that later they will be when a Mahayana text, which is said. So according to the myth, it is said that this text, at that time it was called Nyembe Sawang, because it was called the secretive text, because there was no means of understanding the text, because there were no system of language which could decipher this text. Later, it was said that it was prophesied to him that there will come a king after you, which was the Tsongtse Gampo, during whose time this text will be understood and there will be establishment of Buddhism in Tibet. And so during the time of Songtse Gampo, the Buddhism flourished in Tibet. And so he sent Tumi along with other 16 to Tibet. Some accounts say that he was the only one who reached there. Some accounts say that he and other 2 of his companion reached India. 2 of them weren't able to bear the heat, and so they returned back to Tibet. But other accounts says that all of them died except Tumi Sambuddha, who came to India, and then under the guidance of Brahman Lijinkara or Lipikara and Dev Vidyasimha, Haripesenge, and Thamse Lijinkara. He studied the grammatical system, the Sanskrit grammatical system, and other many texts, including the text on Buddhism as well as Vajrayana. And after completion of this, back to Tibet, and then he established this current system of writing. And at that time, not only that, he also composed 8 texts which were on the Tibetan system of grammar, out of which only 2 remains. So now, before we continue with this, we must also understand that his system of writing was not the first one. And this is historically evident that his system of writing was not the first one. The first ever system of writing, which was a localized original writing system, which was established in the northwestern kingdom of Tibet called Shangshung. And the existence and the evidence of this particular language is given both in some of the historical documents as well as the text in print religion. So therefore, even though this is the first system of writing that is historically evident to be the first system of writing established in Tibet, but this was not the first ever widespread and accepted system of writing, meaning that the system of writing which was established by Tumi Sambuddha was accepted, and it was widespread throughout. It was widespread throughout the Tibet under the rule of the King Songtsen Gampo, the first king of the unified Tibet under the imperial dynasty. So it was during the time of the 42nd king, Udum Tsempo, who reigned during the 838 to 841 current era, who was later assassinated by Thalungpe Toje. So during the 42nd king, being this 42nd king, there are some, this particular number has also some argument, and that has to do with 2 of the kings which came in between, who lived a very short life. And so some historians prefer to not include them, and so some of those historical historians consider Wudum Tsempo to be the 40th. So the 42nd king and the last king of the imperial dynasty, the unified Tibet, was Wudum Tsempo, or his nickname, which is more famous, that is Langtharma, which means the mature bull. And this was particularly given to him because of his nature of being dull and intellectually slow. So during his reign, what he did is that he destroyed monasteries Especially during that time, there was the establishment of the Nyingma sect in Tibet, and he targeted and destroyed many of the Nyingma monasteries at that time. Many of the monks and the practitioner had to run. There are historical documents, especially written in the history of traditional field of learning by Muge Samde, where he states that during that time, he would give the choice. What he would do is that he would give the choice to the monks and nuns to give up their vows and start a family. Otherwise, they were slaughtered and killed, which is also a very, so this particular understanding is where we are saying that Lang Dharma Wudun Sempo was against the Buddhism. It's also challenged by few of the contemporary historians, both Tibetans and non-Tibetan historians. And some even, some of the historians even support his action by saying that during those times, because of the great interest in the monastic and monasteries, the monastic life and monasteries, it was said that the security of the country was jeopardized, and that was the reason why the 42nd king had to take such step. But these will be made clear if you check some of the historical text. So as Tumisambuddha composed 8 texts, out of which only remaining at this particular time, only 2 texts remains. And these two texts are the gender sign and the 30. And numerous commentaries were written on this text, on these texts, one of which is the Tree of Excellence speech, commentary by Yangje Drupal Tojipel, illuminating the hard points of the gender signs by Yangje Drupal Tojipel, as well as the commentary, the great commentary by Siddha Rinpoche, the verbal transmission or the verbal instruction by Siddha Rinpoche to Dharmabhata, as well as the commentary by Tate Rinpoche. So all of these texts are commentaries to these two texts. And then when it comes to poetry, the first probably the first ever text related an understanding of the writing of poetry was published and was translated and published, was Kavya Darsa Nyanga Melongma, and it was composed by Dandi, to 7th century. He was a 7th century, 6th to 7th century scholar. And through him, there were many other commentaries made based on this particular text. And then it began the traditional Tibetan poetry, the traditional Tibetan poem, writing of the traditional Tibetan poem. So many of the historians credit Phil Tundrup Gil, one of the contemporary Tibetan scholar, poet, to bring the free verse poetry in Tibetan. So at these times, many of the scholars, many of the writers prefer the free verse poetry or poem, and this is credited to Tundrup Gil by many historians. And so in the current times, both the traditional as well as the contemporary free verse poem are very much popular. And at this time, both in Tibet and outside Tibet, the free verse poem is being more popularized, and people are using it both as in writing poems as well as writing books and songs also. And one of the more famous poem by Tendrupgil is called Langso Bachuk, The Waterfall of Youth, which is a free verse poem. When we talk about free verse poem, it means that it does not follow the traditional rule of the number of syllable. In the Kavya Darsa, there are rules like you have to follow rules. For example, the number of syllable. There are 6 syllable poetry. Which is not followed by the free verse poetry. Truptop Tangdong Gyabo. Now, when we talk about Truptop Tangdong Gyabo, we're talking about the establishment of the performing arts, the opera. He is credited as the person who established or invented the Tibetan opera, which he began Tibetan opera. He's also known as the Iron Bridge Maker, as he made almost 60 iron bridge throughout Tibet. So Truptop Tangdong Gyabo, and also a great sage and practitioner of both of the Buddhism. And these days, we see that this type of performing arts by Truptop Tangdong Gyabo can be seen performed in many of the Western countries also, as well as in India. It can be seen performed during certain auspicious ceremony. And then the performing arts, the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts, what they do is that they organize annually. They organize a week or 2 weeks of opera programs, where they invite the public, and in front of them they perform the opera. Sometimes 2 or sometimes 3 different operas, as we have already discussed of the 8 famous operas. And then there are also, when we talk about the when we talk about the performing arts, there are other fields such as playing of instruments, songs, verbal poem, narration of stories, as well as riddles, etc. So it was only after the establishment of the system of grammar by Timisambuddha that the written form of these sciences, the science of grammar, the 5 and the 5 minor science, were available in Tibet. The science of fine arts and crafts. So, according to Mugya Samde's records of a history of traditional field of learning, first use of science of craft was during the 8th king of Tibet, Trigum Tsempo, who was considered to be the first king, the first mortal king of Tibet, because the first 7 were known as the immortal kings of Tibet, meaning that kings of Tibet who, after their death, directly went to the Pure Lands. Namgititu. So the 7 immortal kings of Tibet. Then this is the first of the immortal kings of Tibet, the 8th king of Tibet, Trugum Tsempo. The exact period of his reign is not clear, as there are no recorded historical document under the establishment of Shangshung, because there is no historical document until the establishment of Shangshung writing system, because according to the documents found in the Tungho cave, it is evident that the first historical document was written in the Shangshung writing system. But commonly it is known as the commonly it is a common knowledge. Commonly it is known that the pre-imperial Yalung dynasty, meaning before the whole unification of Tibet, the Yalung dynasty was between 127 before current era and 127 before current era and 610 current era. So almost the entire Tibetan dynasty was almost 11 to 1200 years old. So it was a period of at least 11 to 1200 years. But the pre-imperial Yalung dynasty, which began with the reign of the first king, Nyati Sempo, 127 BCE to 610 CE, Namri Songtsen. So during that time, the use of the science of fine arts and craft, the first ever armor and shield were made during his time. Which was definitely inspired by the at that time during the China. So during the 9th, so this is also according to Mugir Samte's record of a history of traditional field of learning, that during the 9th king of Tibet, Bodhikongye, and similarly the exact period of his reign is also not clear because there is no historical document established until the Shangshung writing system. But since we know that it is between 127 BCE to 610 CE, so he reigned in between those times. He was the 9th king and his minister, Ruleke. Interesting story of him being born from the bones. Invented refining of gold and silver from ore. Inventing plows and introducing irrigation system and building of bridges. So Ruleke is considered to be the first of the 7 famous ministers. So there were 7 famous ministers in Tibet. One of the traditional fine arts of Tibet, other than these two, is the Tibetan art of Labti. So the history records that the first king of Tibet, Nyati Tsempo, 127 BCE, had the painting of him lifted by 4 people on a palanquin in his fort, which is the first fort of Tibet, the Yumbu Lakar, the Yumbu fort. And King Songtsen Gampo had many stories, events of arrival of Princess Wangchen in Tibet, and painting of Potala Palace made in the Lhasa Tsuklakang. And this was during the 7th century current era. So inside the Lhasa Tsuklakang, this talks about a very particular particular art which is known as debris. Debris means painting on the wall. So this is considered to be a original science of art in Tibet, drawing different stories, drawing different portraits of gods and deities, drawing different depiction of sutras on the walls. These are called debris. And this was originated from Tibet, and first ever recorded use of this art is during the first king of Tibet, and also in the Lhasa Tsuklakang by the 7th century king. the first king of imperial Tibet, called Songtsen Gampo. So these are some of the examples of the. So as you can see here, you can see these portraits. And also, if some of you have visited the monasteries in India, you know that there is painting on the wall, paintings of deities, paintings of the wheel of death, and other depictions. So these are called debris, and these are called tanka. These are tanka portraits, and these are also used in monasteries, and these are considered to be one of the fine arts of Tibet, called hapti. So this is the Saraswati, Tibet. It's from the Eastern Tibet Kham region, 18th century. Copyrights. And then Manjushri, and this is Namasangiti, Tibet, 16th century. And this is the picture of Songtsen Gampo with his two wives, Princess of the Pesa Tzu and Kesa Kongju, Princess Wengchen, and Princess Brikuti from Nepal. And you can see at the back, there is this painting on the wall, and this is called debris. And this is one of the original fine arts of Tibet, as well as carpentry. Science of medicine. According to Muge Samte's record, A History of Traditional Field of Learning, the science of medicine in Tibet was first introduced to Tibet during the 28th king of Tibet, Hatotri Nyingse, who 461 current era. During his time, two famous physicians, Bijay Gaje and Bila Gaje, they visited the neighboring country of Tibet, China, Nepal. They went to Turkestan, and then afterwards they came to Tibet. During that time, since they were experts in many languages, they studied Tibetan. And then not only that, what they did is that they established the foundation of the science of medicine in Tibet. And during that time, the 28th king, Hatotri Nyingse, he wed his daughter, Princess Hacham Yiki Recha, with Bijay Gaje. And both of them had a son called Tungye Torcho, which is known as the first physician of Tibet, and also the one who planted the seed of the science of medicine in Tibet, as he learned about many ancient texts on medicine from his father, Bijay Gaje. And it is also understood, and he also was the chief physician of the king Hatotri Nyingse and his son. It is also understood that the Yutok Nyingma, the old Yutok Yönde Gompo. So when it comes to Yutok Yönde Gompo, there is a debate, and a very profound one, which is of the Yutok Nyingma and Sama, the old and the new Yutok. So Yutok Yönde Gompo, the old Yutok Yönde Gompo, is understood to be from the same lineage of the science of medicine, which was established by Tungye Torcho. And Yutok Yönde Gompo is a prominent figure. He's a pioneer, one of the pioneers of the widespread, currently widespread science of medicine called Sorik. And he established, so he wrote the text on science. He wrote many texts on science of medicine. One of the fundamental texts, the Guishi, was also written by Yutok Yönde Gompo. So through him, we see that slowly this science started developing, and now we have the Minzikang, which is based on the science of medicine, which is an institute that studies the science of medicine. The science of logic and epistemology was established in in Tibet, and the current system of fundamental epistemology, known as Duja, was first invented by Chaba Chögysenke in the 12th century. So he is credited as the scholar who also introduced the current system of dialectics. As you can see in monasteries, we have the dialectics, we have these dialectics. So dialectic was the system of dialectics, and also the current curriculum, which consists of the studies of the fundamental epistemology, the profound treatise of Dignaga and Dhammakirti, and the five Buddhist, the five texts was this particular curriculum that we have. That first we study the fundamental epistemology, and then afterward we start with the Paramita, and then Madhyamika, then Vinaya, then Abhidharma, was first established by Chaba Chögysenke. And his system of fundamental epistemology, Duja, it comprises of the logic, of the text by Nalanda Paṇḍita, such as Dharmakirti and Dignaga, Dignaga's text of Pramana, Samuchaya, Semakuntu, and the 7 treatises of Dharmakirti on epistemology, Semadedyu. One of them is the Pramana Vartika, Semanamde. So these are the texts which became the basis of the establishment of fundamental epistemology, which talks about some of the important concepts which are discussed in these treatises. So why preserve these 10 sciences as part of ancient wisdom? So contemporary field of studies have made great progress, and many of these fields are providing unimaginable benefits to human society. We see that currently we have many studies, both contemporary and traditional, and these studies have benefited the society in a great way, human society in a great way. But it should not be forgotten that the current society is built upon the foundation of the ancient wisdom, that these 10 sciences are the foundation of great scholars and institutions in the past, institutions such as the Nalanda, which is considered to be one of the oldest and at that time probably the biggest institution when it comes to the field of academia. And then institutions such as Sami Tsuglakhan, Sami University in Tibet, which was the oldest of its kind in Tibet, and probably one of the biggest in the Southeast Asia. So therefore, we must understand that though the contemporary field of science have greatly benefited our society, these are also based on the foundation of many. These are based on the ancient wisdom of the 10 sciences. So let me just point out some of the sciences that we have. For example, the science such as accountancy, which in Tibetan is called Zibelik, which comes under the science of arithmetic, arithmetic, which is one of the minor sciences. The science of aeronautical engineering, so which is known as Namdru Sukukiripa or Rigne, which is the aeronautical. And this comes under the field of Soripa, the science of fine arts and crafts, manufacturing objects. The field of agriculture, Sonam Shingle, which comes under the science of fine arts and craft. Then we have the algebra, which comes under the science of arithmetic. Architecture, Kangsotang, Ardekikupa, which is this agriculture comes under the science of crafts and fine arts. Then we have the science of Numeric, which is this astronomy, which comes under the science of arithmetic. Then we have science such as the commerce, Tsongrik, which comes under the science of arithmetic, as well as it also comes under the science of logic and epistemology. And also, sorry, it comes under the science of grammar. And then communication, 13, comes under the science of grammar. And then computer science, computer theory comes under the science of arithmetic and science of fine arts and craft. Dentistry, Sochotap, comes under the science of medicine. And so we see that there are many sciences such as the law also, Chimlu, which comes under the science of grammar. And music, which comes under the minor science of performing arts. So we see that many of the current studies that we have in our contemporary society are also based on these, can also be classified in these fundamental sciences, these 10 fundamental sciences. So the other reason why, and since it's also an inseparable part of the tradition and culture of Tibet and India, under the understanding of the preservation of culture and tradition, it is important to preserve these 10 sciences as a part of an ancient wisdom. Tibet is a language, Tibetan language currently is a language which is, though being spoken by the natives, is a language which is believed by the natives to be declining. So directly speaking, it is a language that is advancing towards being a dying language soon. Because the proper system and the structure, as well as in the proper usage of the grammatical system, is declining because of many reasons. So therefore, preservation of such language as an ancient wisdom is important, because these languages, such as the Tibetan, our languages is a language, Tibetan language is a language which has at least 13 to 1400 years of history and is considered to be a language, besides Sanskrit, to have all the Buddhist texts translated completely. So that is the reason why the preservation of these 10 sciences is, as a part of an ancient wisdom, is important. Now, if we look at it through the perspective of Buddhism, so today again, rigbe ne nga tala chumpa machena, how cho ki kya thamchi khen yute, teta wena, shenda sarchi jesung tang, deni kunshe chachep tela, te chunche. So from Mahayana Sutra, Alamkara, even the Arya beings will not become omniscient if they do not persevere to study these 5 sciences. Accordingly, persevere to study these to cut the ignorance of words and meaning. Ignorance of words can be cut or illuminated by the study of science of grammar and the minor sciences. The ignorance of the meaning can be cut or illuminated by the study of the logic and epistemology, science of logic and epistemology. The study, and so also to provide service to others. And the 2 sciences which provide service to others is the science of medicine, which provides service to others by helping them rid from the suffering of disease. The other one is the science of fine arts and crafts, which enable people to produce things, which helps and facilitate people to make life easier. And then the final science, the science of inner science, is to understand the nature of one's being, to see and understand the nature of one's being, to see the nature of one's mind, and tame it. And so, according to the commentary of Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, it says, Bodhisattva persevere in the study of medicine of science so as to provide the living beings a long life without disease. Bodhisattva persevere in the study of the science of crafts and fine arts and crafts so that you can provide and facilitate the sentient being by providing them things or means from which they can sustain. So we see that these 5 sciences are it's inevitable to learn these 5 sciences if one wants to attain enlightenment. So even the Arya beings cannot attain enlightenment without study of these 5 sciences, then it goes without saying that ones who are not the Arya beings should persevere in the study of these 5 sciences. So the Tibetan perspective of the 5 sciences. So the 5 sciences are classified as the greater and the lesser 5 sciences. The greatest on the basis of utility, that is. So the first one, the science of grammar, that is used in writing text and treatise in Buddhism, is known as the greater science of grammar. The science of grammar which is used in order to write stories, letters, or any anything that is related to worldly things are known as the lesser science of grammar. And then the greater science of fine arts and craft is, for example, writing tanka, writing the paintings on the wall of the deities, building the idols of Buddha and the deities. and also making the altar, building monasteries, as well as making the printing plank for the text and scriptures, printing slab for the text and scriptures, tailoring the clothes of monks. These are known as the great signs of fine arts and crafts. The lesser signs of fine arts and crafts are, for example, building house, farming, irrigation, for example, trading, making of mattresses, making of clothes, clothes used for day-to-day life, building of furnitures like chairs and tables are all considered to be lesser signs of, known as the lesser signs of fine arts and craft. The greater signs of medicine. So the science of medicine is considered to be a greater science by itself. And then epistemology and inner science are also considered to be greater science. Okay, now this is the final poetry, which is a dedication to some of the great scholars of the past, and also Buddha and Samantabhadra. So I will read this. Kangi yunde kungi shima chosompa chinchen lama tamba nam chatselos. The one who is the foundation of all good qualities, I prostrate to you, O gracious Lama Guru, Lama Tamjin Sherabla Chatselo. I bow to the Guru who is the omniscient one. Yunto Sambo Hecho Raptrone, Yang Sen Tome, Dayang, Adranam, Rabdu Cha, Jigden Tenchung Mingzam, Nida Ni, Chweni Same Shema Tenechung. Samantabhadra, who first radiated the sound of the vowels and consonant, and by which the establishment of the dependent origin, an origination based on mere imputation of name, and also the foundation of the true nature, the profound nature of phenomena, also originated from these sounds. Shaka gese mi senge tra, geti tongshi semdu tabshe sung. The prince of the Shakya clan became the lion amongst the human, the one who expounded the 84,000 bodies of teaching to tame and control one's mind. The soft and gentle light, the very nature of the soft and gentle light, I prostrate to you, O Bhagavati, O Bhagavad, O Bhagat, Bhagavad Buddha. To some sherapin Chime Veser Mari Miselva, Menju Kosha, Kombo Sarvakya, Vimalai Kombo Lachatse. So the one who is the emanation, the embodiment of the wisdom of the Buddhas of three time, the Lord, the stainless light, which dispels the ignorance of self-grasping ignorance, Manju Gosha, who is the Lord, who Lord of the complete wisdom. I bow down to you, O Lord of the pure land of Vimala. Shirab Hamo Rabse Yangjema, Jambe Shirab Nimbu Mooni, Jayang Kungi Shima, Sochuma, Yangjian Dawe Semur Chatsalo. The goddess of wisdom, most beautiful Saraswati, the one who is the essence of the wisdom of Manjushri, the one who is the originator of all the sound and rhythm, O the lotus, O the lake born, I bow down to you, the princess of moon, goddess Saraswati. Kangi yanam tuinsepa, ugyen tachi rebachi, Mahakala zesumsin, Toshiwa, kubit chatsem. The one who has originated the vowels, whose head is ornamented by a crescent moon, the one beholding the trident, O Mahakala, I prostrate you with reverence, Tat Shiva. Kangi tube o uma gongba rabtu sel, rabtu tel, tenjung kyabo tong nelu su, sangi nipa trape keba cho, papa ludu shabla chatselo. The one, the concept of middle way of the Buddha most profoundly. The one who spoke of the dependent origination in terms of emptiness. The one who is renowned as the second Buddha and the most excellent of all the scholars. I prostrate to you, O Arya, Nagarjuna. Laba kungi shema mingsi choba tsum. Hoyu kieki chope tsui sheba. Andrada ripe nyumba rapsewa lopen panishabfichatse. The one who established the system of grammar in the language that is considered to be the most excellent language from the land of Arya, that is Sanskrit, to be so thus establishing the foundation of the fundamental practice, which is the name, words, and statement. Or composing the text that illuminates the misconception about the language and structure of grammar. I bow down to you with reverence, O Paṇḍita Panini. Signoni ki mo pe mo baseve ta tue ri pe nelu thamche rabtewa. Sendra lungki tenchu zepo kechenpo. Loben sendra ngomir pube chatselu. The one who established and authored, composed the text that illuminates the misconception of the words and the meanings, explaining most wonderfully the science of grammar, composing the text, the Chandragomi Vyakarana. I prostrate to you with reverence, O Paṇḍita Chandragomi. Nyensi ngao tuen yiwon wa yi debcho sabtishung. Sigdang gengi tabe nuna. Tamche rabtu se. Rabsab tsiki chorwe dratang tuenki rabtu gawa. La nyensi melon wangbo. Yukpa tandir kwichatse. The one who established the foundation of the grammatical system of the poetry, teaching the words and ornament of words by analyzing the system of poetry and most wonderfully illuminating these doubts. The most profound system that teaches us the composition of poetry, which is wonderful to hear and most fascinating to understand. The author of the Mirror of Poetry, I bow to you with reverence, O Dandi Yupache. Tuenbe shunglu tamje ripe rabje ze. Kewe shungchen tensi tabe shunglu tsam. Kewe gongba trawe ndrume rambawa kechen lopen choge langbo la chatse. the one who established the meaning of the Buddha's teaching by thoroughly analyzing by the concept of epistemology, one who established the systematic logic in epistemology and began the system of analyzing through these systems, the butter lamp that burns most excellently, which explains the teaching of Buddha, each word and each meaning as exact. I bow down to you, O Paṇḍita and great scholar, Dignaga. So with this, we're done with today's lesson here. So before we end today's lesson, there are some announcements regarding this. So this, as we know, is a part of the grammar course. This open lecture course is a part of a grammar course that we are teaching. And so the very reason or the purpose of this course, the open lecture course, is to provide the understanding of Tibetan language and culture to anyone who is interested in learning them, and also to arise awareness about the preservation of Tibetan language and culture as an ancient Indian wisdom. Now, since this is a part of the grammar course, those who are interested in Tibetan grammar, those who are interested and those who may have experience with Tibetan grammar, we are providing a grammar class, and so the registration form will be posted in the events group that you have joined. So those who are interested, you may join the event. You may check the event group where the registration form will be there. And currently we're on a break. So after that, we're going to resume, and there is a parallel course that is called Tibetan Intermediate Conversation course. So those who are interested in that too, the registration form will be linked to the registration form will be posted there also. So please check the registration link. And this is the first lecture under the open series of Tibetan Open Course, Tibetan Heruka Institute Open Lecture Course. So there will be few others in the future. These courses are open to anyone and everyone that is interested to learn a little bit about the Tibetan tradition and culture. So today we had a discussion on the 10 sciences. So this is it for the lecture, and you see. So before we end, let me read this final verse. So may all of would dharma or any profound thoughts and practice, as a matter of fact, and may that profound thought and practice, which here is the dharma, become one's path and living path and way of living. And so may the path, may all the obstruction and the obstacles in the path be pacified, and may all of us attain our highest goal. So with this, we're done with today's lesson, the first open lecture of Heruka Institute, the open lecture series. a brief introduction to 10 sciences. I hope it was beneficial to every one of you and that you were able to gain a little bit more understanding on the 10 sciences and a little bit more awareness on the Tibetan culture and tradition. Thank you very much for joining in, and I hope everyone have a wonderful day wherever they are, be it morning, evening, and afternoon. So that's all. Tashitele. Thank you, and that's all.